Hello dear viewer, the patch notes for the post DLC 3 patch has now dropped, so I'm going to go through and just talk about some highlights here. And for those of you who have been following my build spreadsheet, I have done the big patch update 2 push myself, so all of my builds have now been updated because I've had more time to test things. I've changed a lot of the build's endgame progression for those of you who are in tier 3, so do have a look for that. And for those of you who have joined either Twitch membership subscriptions or YouTube membership subscriptions, I have added to the membership the auto level mod build code, so that'll be much more easier for you guys to level up. So with that, let's have a look at the DLC. Abelard introduced the big patch post-release update 1.61493. So I'm only going to go through the bits that really concern myself, but we will quickly talk about the highlights. Added a number of new epilogues and improved the old ones that interact with the Infinite Museum. Added missing colonization lines for Eogun. So bad news for this one, they did not add Eogun's colony items. Instead, he presents other companions items. So unlike Kabila and Solomon, Eogun does not get colony reward items. Very weird changed. Returned the favourite tabs in the level up screen, reduced Eogun's friendly fire potential, whilst also massively nerfing him. Buffed Olgan Grip arms to allow the wielding for two-handed weapons in one hand. They are still terrible. They are still absolutely terrible. So they no longer reduce your damage, but they do take away area attacks. Area attacks is the only reason you would ever use a two-hander, because they are strictly weaker than one-handed versions. They are, in a lot of cases, less base damage. They get more strength scaling, but that doesn't matter because the effects of the one-hand versions are infinitely stronger. There is not a single two-hander in the game that can even compare to the Act 2 Carnage, let alone the Act 4 Tearing Vengeance, or even any of the Act 5 axes that you get, like the Sanguine Thirst. So, yeah, still absolutely useless, and there is no upgrade to the right hand, so it's not even useful for Vanguard, because the upgrade to the right hand is actually for Arc Militant, and all it does is reduce your attacker cost by 1 AP if you have a pistol in the other hand. So it's not even that useful for Vanguard. However, if you do just want to aesthetically be a weaker build that has a bigger sword in one hand or a bigger hammer in one hand, you can do that now. So yeah, you're not getting gimped for having tried that. Fix the annoying torpedo bug in space combat. Woo! Space combat might finally be viable. I can finally get around to pushing the goddamn space combat guide. Fix desyncs caused by augmentation system. Got rid of Uralit's doppelganger in Commodore. I got rid of regular Ura in Commodore. Well, on my current run, I got rid of her in Act 2. So, patch note system stability, improved performance of enemy AI during AoE ability selection, could be fun. Lag and freezing, so looks like they fixed some freezing cutscenes caused by familiars running for hidden loot, and fixed extremely long loading time of saves list if at least one of the save files in the folder was damaged or unreadable. So that's quite good, and fixed save freezing during Captain Sargona. So they have done some narrative changes, some epilogue changes, they've gone over and done some dialogue tweaks for Lex Imperialis, and they've gone back over and, well yes, they've added Eogun's misses options to colonization events, but it's only dialogue. They haven't added any new items. I've already checked the code. I already installed all items, and yeah, nothing new came with this. So I loaded up a save, checked, and at one point Eogun presented Hymex's option. So don't know what's going on here. That's weird. He doesn't have any colony item rewards like the previous companions. So they've added some more reactivity, but none of that which we really care about. Yeah, Uralit will no longer appear at the Reaving Tempest Spire, potentially soft locking the playthrough, so yep, good news for you who have had that. It's impossible to loot the corrupted body part of the homunculus quest fixed. Yep, that's pretty good. Added some additional flavor text to the augments in Kimura. So here is the bits that we do care about. Mechanics balance. Some of the Drover attacks on Zarkov have had their area of effect reduced, so the boss has been nerfed. Eogun can no longer apply Echo Pulse to allies if Galvanic Field or Transonic Wave, which is a good buff. Eogun can no longer deal damage to his allies affected by Galvanic Field with Arc Rifle's additional lightnings, which is also a good buff. Pascal Axle Fortification no longer increases all incoming damage, only shock. This is very useful because it meant that he doesn't auto die if he overloads his own plasma cannon, so Pascal should stop dying so easily. Eargun can no longer retransmatic galvanic field to himself via servo skulls 1. Well, that's a pretty big nerf, Jesus. Charge distribution has had its explosion damage reduced from Eargun's int to Eargun's int bonus times 3. Yeah, massive nerf. Because obviously when you had 70 int before, that was quite strong, but now that would just be a 7 times 3, so you're looking at 24. So yeah, massive nerf. Wounded Beast and Facing the End talents got upper limited to their bonuses due to the change for the number of traumas. These two talents got a 1.5 damage increase, making them incredibly powerful. We want to scale it down high end to lower the old maximum. So they decided to nerf Blade Dancer rather than fix the fact that Blade Dancer abilities don't count as melee and don't apply dots. Very weird. One of the reasons I haven't updated or posted my Blade Dancer build video, which I used to solo the game, is because, well, this bug. Obviously, it's not stopped other people pushing out clickbait, but yeah, weird. I did already message community managers this morning, and they said that apparently trying to fix Assassin and Blade Dancer caused more bugs, so it's currently not being done. But they did fix Blade Dance ability not working with Blood Oath, so you will get that AP. However, obviously, it will still not work with Scourging Strikes, nor will Death from Above. Invulnerable enemies no longer affected by the minimal damage setting, so you won't accidentally destroy the bunkers. Littlest Stare now correctly deals damage to turrets, so Cassia buff. Necron Chronomancer's Causality Breach sometimes failed to enforce its turn time on character's second extra turn in a round. So yeah, if you stacked extra turns, you could get past that, so that's a good buff there. Trazyn's Archivist of Solemnance, well, Temporal Shift, will no longer be triggered by actions performed by Siberian. Trazyn's, oh my god, saying that twice in a row, incorrectly counter certain actions twice, inexplicably noticeable with the Overseer and Operative archetypes. So yeah, that's a Trazyn nerf, but a good one, because it was causing him to get all of his extra stuff very quickly. Fixed error causing some skill checks on the Void Ship Bridge Act 2 to have incorrect difficulty. Oh yeah, I noticed some of them having like minus 120 on some of these. It was crazy. Weapon bonuses could affect damage over a time effects cases where they shouldn't have. Fixed, cool. Excellence was working on resistant tests forced by enemies. Fixed. Yep, the base damage of Serve Cold ability was not displayed. Fixed. Turn could fail to end if the enemy was killed by Forced Couple Augment ability. Fixed. One thing I haven't noticed here in the fix is the Hive World's Camaraderie still isn't fixed. It does not allow you to use Fellowship for willpower checks and dialogue. Massive nerf to Fellowship builds and anyone using Hive World. It's practically a barely working homeworld. The only thing useful for it is to use the bug abuse on weapon personalization, which I'm not going to say out loud so they don't nerf that again as well. Navigate enemies will more often use Littlest Stare. That's hilarious. Charge distribution explosions no longer deal damage to targets affected by galvanic field. Yeah, that was mostly impacting pets, so that's good to see. Using Ogryn Grip together with Shotgun Mastery feature would prevent the character from being able to use shotgun weapon abilities. Fixed. Oh, very nice. Psychods could summon Daemon through Perils of the Warp in the prologue despite the restrictions that should have been made impossible. Fixed. That doesn't say if that applies to Idra. Idra might still be doing that. They might have just fixed the 15 Veil and not the Idra's always on Psycho chance. So yeah, that could be a problem. So they also did some item changes, improved the rewards for multiple puzzles in the Infinite Mausoleum content, but they've added nothing new, so they've just moved stuff around, so that'll be fun to see. So Psycho's Breastplate no longer gives +1 psi rating for each psychic phenomenon. Now it only works for Perils of the Warp, but gives +2 instead. Yep, so this is a massive nerf to Psycho's Breastplate, and this happened because of Idra stands complaining that Idra couldn't build psi rating as quickly as Heinrich's. So thanks for that, by the way, Idra stands. We have noticed that it provides an easy way to increase your psi rating beyond the reasonable amount. By notice, they mean they saw me having an argument with the Russian community, and I pointed this out that Heinrich's was better than Idra, and when they were trying to big up Idra. So, whoops! Combi Tool of Manipuli now clarifies that it requires potential energy producing concentration. Yep. Updated the icon for Combi Tool of the Manipuli. Cool. Pungent Smoke Grenade effects dealt 20 toxic damage instead of applying 20 levels of toxin. Fix. Oh, that's quite useful for executioners. Maybe we can use an executioner grenade build. Adaptive Servo Strut Legs augment was not upgrading half covered, full cover in some cases. Fixed. Oh, massive boost for anyone trying to use this with Astra Militarum Commander and combine it with the Servo Skull. Not on the Astra Militarum Command, but an ally, so you can use Trench Warfare very well now. And stab stacks applied by a Xenogasm Grenade will be removed at once instead of one per round. Nice. Changed Holy Vestments to scale of Fair and Sanctum instead of Reject the Flesh rank. Finally, I did point this out to them in early access. This was a long time coming change, since we've always wanted to add a way to mechanize Pascal more, and with the induction of augments into the game, it's finally time. So yeah, so his holy vestment will now fix with his Ferrum instead of reject the flesh, which is now going to be a half abandoned mechanic, but you'll see lots of enemies with it to get ridiculous armor. But yeah, Pascal will only have one. Fixed and negative features from left and right versions of Bionic Arm Implant were not working together. Fixed. Nice. Pneumatic assault grapple will always attempt to move the target to the closest available tile. Some augment tooltips displayed 0 instead of the actual values in preview and augment. That was not yet installed. Fixed. Removed the damage penalty from all augment grip arms and added a small damage to MK2 version. There is only an MK2 version left. There is not an MK2 version right. Yeah, so it just means Oaken Arms aren't useful on any single build in the game, because if, say, you wanted to use a Shield Vanguard where you can't upgrade your right arm for a giant two-handed sword, you wouldn't use this on Arc Militant because you lose access to area attacks, which is what you need to build versatility. Yeah, there's not a single build that wants to use Oaken Arms. Even if you put it on your primary arm with the Act 4 of the MK Arc Militant build, which gives you -1 to your first attacking round, who gives a hell if your first attacking round costs 1 AP less? That's nothing. That's literally nothing. It doesn't even apply to the gun. It only applies to the melee weapon. Yeah, there's not a single build that would benefit from Oaken Arms. It's literally an aesthetical choice that you are making a conscious decision to make a weaker build because you want to have the big sword instead of a normal sword. It will still also prevent all Blade Dancer abilities. Ghost Helm no longer triggers for ally attacks. Whilst we appreciate the resourcefulness of our community, the amount of ways to auto-dodge ally attacks made this so too widely. Yeah, this happened because Reddit kept bragging about it. Like, Reddit kept posting 100 PR pictures. It's why I've never covered the Ghost Helm, because I didn't want it nerfed. So yeah, thanks for that. They're probably going to get Invigorating Resolve nerfed next, because they're still bragging about their turn 7 Abelard having 900 strength. GG, guys. Multi-melters incorrectly had 6 rate of fire listed despite not having the burst attack fixed. Locations. Pascal will no longer randomly change location on the bridge after a save load. Nuncius will no longer sometimes bug out in elevators, remaining a different zone to the rest of the party. Merovian guards will no longer be levitating in Zarkov. Familiars sometimes appeared in encounters meant for the Lord Captain only, such as the Zarkov Arena combat. Fixed. Fixed multiple pass issues in the Infinite Mausoleum. On Tyrek 4, selection no longer drops from the party member after the cutscene. Selection no longer drops from the party. I guess they were meant to put something there. Sometimes would return to the void ship blocked. Companions could sometimes remain standing in the air or fall as the container started to move. Fixed. Yes, that was very difficult to try and get that item that was on the lower level that you had to do a little puzzle for. Characters sometimes jumped very high when trying to reach the satchel. Fixed. Yep. Yeah, that was that bug. Fix some missing textures in Epitaph. Nice. Fix some missing textures in Gamora. Yep. Fix some verticality issues in DLC3 locations where some places it was impossible to attack or interact from at a different height. Yes, I noticed this with Flamers. Flamers are struggling with stairs, and it's something that's only happened with patch 1.6. Often you can't aim your Flamer because of stairs. As someone that's started using Flamers more now that you got the can be usable in melee, this has been annoying. So it sounds like some locations are fixed, but not for stairs specifically, unless it comes up later in the patch notes. NPCs no longer hover in midair during the confrontation between Chorda and Vladim. Pilot will no longer continue to stand near the crash shuttle like nothing happened. At the freight line, it is no longer possible to fall under the elevator. Nice. The secret room at the Sector Bionica will now have cameras centered at its entrance when unlocked. Fix some incorrect cover hitboxes for the freight line. Oh, there are so many incorrect cover hitboxes in this game. They need to fix a lot of them. It causes all sorts of bugs. Improve pathing elevators on multiple locations. Fix the opening of the empty crate in Zarkov. You can no longer initiate combat from the second floor at the upper way. Okay, so art and visuals and generals, we don't really care about that. Cutscenes having some minor improvements having here, but having, okay, some minor improvements to the Magno Assessio ceremony cutscene. That I do care about, because I want to see that. Added a small cutscene to exploding the door at Rykard Filia. Do want to see that too. Visual improvements at the Mausoleum cutscenes. Nice. Fixed the long pause during the cutscene at Urek 5. Nice. Moved long pause after a cutscene at Calcazar Epitaph. Nice. Calcazar no longer disappears for a few seconds during cutscenes. Also nice. Improved the warp visual effects after the destruction of the dampening device in Gamora. Ooh, Actually, I care about all of those. Animation and visual effects. So let's have a quick look, see if there's anything in here. Improved death animations for the tendrils and form wild beast. Yep. Fixed issues for the fire visual effects displaying incorrectly in some locations. Cool. Added a new visual effect for trays and staff. Okay. The flame from the pipe now becomes visibly stronger after solving the puzzle. Turquoise. Oh, success. So this is the oil rig. Added an attack animation to the rogue trader after one of the dialogue answers in Zarkov. Added multiple missing idle animations from characters at the Sector Bionica. Added appearance-disappearance effect for Valkyries at the Dark Goddess exhibition. Electro Priests had their animations missing after 1.6 fix. Oh, very nice. Some visual effects don't resume after save load at the Dark Honest exhibition. Enemies no longer sometimes become stuck in shooting animations. Fixed EO guns floating too high self-knowledge quest. And improved visual effects of the puzzle at Dark Honest exhibition. I do not see anything here about the 1.6 bug where sometimes shots just won't work till a save reload where your character can't fire bullets. And this happens a lot in multi-phase encounters. Nor did I see anything about the charge bug where you sometimes charge and get stuck into enemies. So these are things that we are still waiting to get fixed. So some quality of life UI improvements. Return the favorites filter button at the top of the screen. Nice. In the augmentation screen, enabling the hide unsuitable filter was incorrectly hiding every augmentation, leaving the list empty. Okay, so they fixed that. Soldier Firearm Master remaining attacks now show above the portrait buff and stacks. That's cool. That's cool. So you know how many are coming. That's actually going to be really useful. So let's see if there's anything general that we care about. So let's have a little read here. So on a quick scan here, Ricochet predictions displayed incorrect numbers fixed. This is nice because it was all clue, so we can now understand what Ricochet's percentage will be. It won't stop Pascal from killing his allies during expert finesse and then bouncing off and wiping out your whole team, but that is just lore accurate Pascal. Some of the other things are just some very small fixes that aren't really worth me going over, but at least some of the Pascal's icons have been fixed. But yes, character screen UI, the Commissar cap issue has finally been fixed, which is pretty big for me. Space and colony management has had some changes there. Not much I care about there. Not much I care about audio and sound. Not much I care about that. Not much I care about space combat, except for this one, which is, in space combat, launched torpedoes would often skip their turn and act at the very end of the round instead of in the normal initiative. Fixed. Torpedoes are now usable. Congratulations, space combat is no longer going to be as trash as it was. We've also had a bunch of new items with patch 1.6 and the progression is a little bit better. However, the Navy escort ship is still the best of the two between them and the pirate one. The pirate one's still absolutely useless. So it would be nice if in the future those two got upgraded or had a way for us to upgrade them. But it is something. At the moment, the only true escort is the Heartless. But it looks like they fixed some other issues, and apparently for co-op, they fixed some desyncs in here, but there's still lots and lots of desyncs that often happen. And they had an autosave at the entrance of the Zarkov system, which is kind of nice, and fixed an issue in multiple achievement bugs being impossible to obtain. So yes, I logged into the game and I did get a bunch of achievements. So that is all going to be the new stuff in the patch notes. Like I said, Blade Dancer's not fixed, Assassin's Imminent Demise is not fixed, Eogun's been nerfed, Eogun did not get his new items, yeah, it's Ogren Arms, yeah, they're not as bad as they were, but there's still not any builds that you'd really put them on. It's just an aesthetic choice. Overall, I'm glad to see a lot of fixes coming in here, but unfortunately it's not the update patch I was waiting for. However, I am still pushing out a bunch of my Blade Dancer builds that I had been holding back, and I have updated all of my Blade Dancer builds that were currently on the spreadsheet, along with updating all of our companion builds and our main character builds that have been mildly impacted by this patch. So I've been Revan619, do pop along for some live streaming, I'll probably be doing that this evening, and I will see you all in the next video.